Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today it is time to have a look at the battlefield engineer vehicles. For me, when looking at event vehicles, it's always important to work out whether they are good event vehicles or bad event vehicles. And I know a lot of people see this as an idea of, is it good in the way of, is it meta, or is it bad in the way that it's useless? For me, there are some more key factors. But before we get into it, I just want to share this post from Mike 10D on the War Thunder Reddit. If you want to support Mike, I believe he does have a Patreon and also a PayPal available. You can talk to him privately about those things if you want to support him. So the data mine basically goes through what we're going to be looking at for this event, and it does look incredibly complicated. It looks like the IS-7 event took a little bit of a sniff of crack, which is normally not great for you, and definitely not good for the event either. I think it's going to take me a longer time to go over this and work out what's going on, and I'm sure in a few days we'll probably be having an official announcement on how all this works. But just understand, on the Tech Hub Discord, we are going to have a dedicated room explaining all of what's going on with this event. So if you need like a bite-sized chunk of how this event is sorted out or what's going on with it, then this will be the place for you where it will be available for you. So yeah, but right now it is looking at least similar to the IS-7 event compared to something like the Sea Voyage event, which is, normally what we get. The next point is, now that we've worked out all of the different blueprints and we have a dev blog on each of these vehicles, it's time to talk, as I said, about if they're good premiums or good event vehicles or bad event vehicles. And my criteria for a good event vehicle is it doesn't take over the meta. It can easily have a tech tree equivalent to it, and also it just isn't game breaking, or it doesn't include mechanics which would not be available for the rest of the general public. So an example of a bad event vehicle in my opinion is something like the German ersatz. And the reason for this, you may look at it nowadays and think, okay, well, it's a 5.7. Let's just change this to realistic. I was playing arcade to do the decal for the AA. But you may look at it now and be like, oh, well, it's a 5.7 Panther. It's just a conglomeration of the two other Panthers that we have, the Panther A and the Panther G. Well, when this thing came out, it was at 5.7, and both of these vehicles were not at 5.7, or neither of these vehicles were at 5.7. They were both higher BR. So you were pretty much getting a better version of the Panther D in every way at the same BR as the Panther D. It could definitely be seen as paying for power. Yes, maybe nowadays you could say that since the other Panther has been dropped to 5.7, that this is more of a better, BR for the ersatz. But just in the general term of, is this a good premium to have? No. I'm sorry, is this a good event vehicle? No, I don't think so. Another example of this would be in the Soviets with the release version of the I-301, or even the TB3M if you want. The I-301, when it was released around 2.0, was annihilating everything, and yes, you had standard trajectory equivalents in the form of the Yak-1 or the Yak-7, but this was just insane. Like, it was taking over games, it was completely ridiculous, and still does to this day at 2.7, showing how good it is. So those are examples of bad premiums. On the side of good premiums, we can look at many, such as the Whirlwind P9. It's incredibly similar to the Whirlwind Mark 1. The only difference is the Whirlwind Mark 1 has a little bit less ammo and a bit more in the terms of secondary armaments in the form of bombs. So you can see it as a machine which you can either take this one out to deal with the air threat a bit more, but this one would be more useful in ground. But overall, the general FMs are very, very similar. The other vehicle, which I think is a good gift vehicle, is the T-30. Now, the reason for this is because you have a better version of it in the tech tree. You know, some people disagree with this, but I think the T-34 is just better than the T-30 because of its reload rate and also because of its very high penning shell. With this machine, the T-30, instead of the T-34, it does have a lot of oomph behind the shell, but overall, I would rather have this vehicle just because of its stopping power of its shell, and also the fact that it's a little bit easier to fire at range. So from that, you know, the T-34 and the T-30, it's got a standard tech tree equivalent. The standard tech tree equivalent is slightly better than the gift premium. This is a perfect premium in my book when it comes to a gift vehicle. So taking those two ideas into context, we can have a look at the 6 vehicles that are going to be on offer in this Battlefield Engineer event. And the first one is, of course, the one from today. So the VFW, or the ridiculously named one, since it is German and they have some wonderful names, but as always, whenever I try and pronounce them, a lot of people get annoyed. So let's talk about this machine here. Now, is it going to be meta-defining? The only time when we saw a machine like this be meta-defining, or at least close to that, was with the 88mm flak bus when it was a lower BR. It had a ridiculously good reload for the 88, it was able to pretty much stop anything in its tracks, and it was one of the only counters that Germany had when it came to trying to annihilate the jumbo spam, which was coming in at 4.7. It still is very good to this day, but it does have its issues. You know, it does have the fact that it gets killed from above, and also that it's really easy to pen. Even the front bit, you know, 50 cals can go through parts of it, so these 10mm worth of armor. So overall, with the 88 Flak 37 SFL, you know, it's not really meta-defining, but it is a tech tree equivalent to the VFW, which is very similar in scope to it. You know, it doesn't have a crazy amount of armor, it's not on the same chassis, but it should have a little bit better maneuverability, but it's got a very similar gun, if not the same gun. It's a blast shield machine, and also it's annihilated from the air. So already this fits the bill. You know, it's going to be good at its BR because of the 88, it's going to be a rank 3 vehicle, this is only a rank 2, so they're probably going to stick it around the 4043 idea, and at the end of the day, it's going to be fun to use, but it's not going to be meta-defining because of the fact that it's a tank destroyer, because of the fact that you can machine gun it to death, the fact that it doesn't have a lot of armor, and it will just get annihilated by planes. So you can see that for me, this is a good standard, you know, this is a good gift premium that they can give. And also, if they really wanted to stretch out, you know, the uniqueness of having a standard tech tree version of this, there was one planned with an L56 cannon and one with the L71. So you could just put the other one in, which isn't the one which we have, and just do it like that. So you can see that this is the one that we have when it comes to the one coming to game. This is just it to the side, and then of course this as well is another thing that we could have. So this is of part of the similar project where it was quad 20s instead of an 88. You could put this in. It would obviously not have the same killing power as the 88s, but overall it would still mean that we have something similar to it. So that, in my opinion, is a good tech tree, a good gift premium. The next one is the HMS Tiger, the Annihilator. Now, unfortunately for the Tiger, it fits in one category but doesn't fit in the other. Is it meta-defining? It's hard to tell. I think personally it'll do really well because of its semi-automatic guns. It's going to struggle a little bit against aircraft, but then you remember that all of these guns should also have, you know, the burst fuse shells, which are great against aircraft. And also with the rapid fire, they can put out a ton of damage in the air or on the sea at all times. It doesn't have torpedoes, so that's a little bit against it. It doesn't have a ton of secondary armaments, so you know, it's at least limited in that way if one of the turrets gets knocked out. So it's going to be hard to tell if this is going to be meta or not. I personally think it is going to be. Just because of the rapid fire of the guns. You know, we see machines like the 159, which are incredibly good. in Naval. And I haven't played it since the beta, so it may have changed, but my experiences with it were incredibly positive, just because of the dual sets of the 76mm, and if it's anything like that on the Tiger, then we have ourselves a winner. Now, right now we don't have a light cruiser in the game which is similar to it when it comes to Britain. You have machines which are similar when it comes to armor, but not the semi-automatic guns idea or the battle cruiser idea that it holds. The idea that it's more designed to annihilate other ships than, other machines. It's not as focused as this ship is. So if we wanted a standard tech tree vehicle of the HMS Tiger, because remember, since this is such a high BR, or a high rank, it should be a gift vehicle and not a premium, but we haven't had any confirmation of that. That's just my guess. I think personally that there is easily a tech tree equivalent that could be put in. So remember, the HMS Tiger is the lead ship of the Tiger class cruisers, and there are 3 of them. And one of them is this machine right here, which is the HMS Blake. Now, the Blake itself was laid down 1945, I think. It was used in the 60s alongside stuff like the Tiger. And what you get out of this is the same guns, and it does also have access to that anti-ship missile idea, which can also be present on later variants of the Tiger. So if you wanted to go down that route, you could also do it with the Blake. So there is a standard tech tree equivalent that could be added. The third factor is the rank of the vehicle. So this is a top-tier gift vehicle. Now, I'm generally not okay with premium vehicles at top tier, such as the 9.0s. I'm generally against them, just because I don't want somebody buying into, the top tiers of a nation. I am the same way with gift vehicles. I think gift vehicles should be rank 2 to 4. Now we have rank 7. Once rank 7 is a little bit more fleshed out, we could make those rank 5s. I think that is the best thing to do. But this is just a chock-a-block top tier light cruiser coming out here. Just like how the Leningrad was one of the best destroyers that came to the Soviets, now we have the Tiger, which is going to be one of the best light cruisers that is given to the British. So the 2 factors going against it are my thoughts that it's going to be meta, and also the fact that it's high rank, but it can easily get a standard tech tree equivalent. So overall, this machine is no bueno when it comes to it being an event vehicle. I would personally prefer it, if they were going to pick a vehicle for the British, to pick a lower tier one. A rank 3 one would be much better than a high tier rank 4. The next vehicle is the Merkava. Now, the Merkava is all by itself. First of all, it's obviously Israeli, so a lot of people are interested in it. It's high tier, once again, and also on top of it, it doesn't really have a standard tech tree equivalent. This is going to be a rank 6 vehicle, and what you're getting from it is a stabilized 105 with a decent amount of speed behind it, not a ton, but it's incredibly angled. So the ideas of comparing it to an M60 AOS make no sense to me, because this thing, first of all, fires APF-SDS. It, second of all, is 60 tons. It's highly angled. It has a armored crew. It has the engine in the front. It has a lot of waste in the back. Its ammo is going to be hard to hit. It's got a very small turret. There's nothing like this in the American tech tree at the level of rank 6, which is where this thing is coming in. Now, it's not coming in as a premium, it's coming in as a gift vehicle, but I do think that this will be part of the meta. It has all of the parts of a rank 6 needing to be in the meta. It's got okay speed, stabilized gun, APF-SDS, or at least it should get APF-SDS. I don't think that's fully confirmed yet. It may have been somewhere in this dev blog. Let's just check. Do a quick search. No. Okay, so it's not confirmed in this, but that was its standard round that it had at the time, and it has no tech tree equivalent. And on top of this, it is high tier. So this, to me, even though I know a lot of people are looking forward to the Merkava, I don't want it to be an event vehicle. I would rather it be in its own place. I would rather it be either in its own tree or in a subsidiary tree off the American tree, along with a bunch of other Israeli vehicles, because of the fact that it doesn't fit my personal 3 criteria for a machine. So it's a no-go for the Merkava as a good event vehicle. The next one is the Project 122 BIS. Now, this one's pretty simple. You know, the uniqueness of it is the fact that it has these bomb mortars. I personally don't think the bomb mortars are useful at all. I think they are a waste of time for the majority of people and are only useful in very specific situations. So if we look at everything else, you know, you've got 237s, you've got a large gun on the front of it in the form of an 85, you've got some machine guns all over it, and you've got no torpedoes, so you've pretty much got a battle boat with a bunch of guns on it. So the Soviets have a few of the ships which are pretty similar to it. So, you know, the PR-1204 Late, which is this machine here, it's got a 76 on the front, it's got, you know, a dual, it's got a dual mounted 25mm, it's got 4 30mm grenade launchers in the center, because why not? So that to me is kind of similar to, you know, what we're getting. Then you have other machines such as this, which is, you know, the PR-191M or the MBK-161. This is probably the closest that we're going to get, just because of the amount of guns and stuff that's on it. Not really about the shape, but because the main factor of it is the guns. You know, you can see that we have a lot of similar stuff to it already, even with the PR-191M with its KPVs. So already, I think personally, it is fine to have this come to game in that sense. You know, it has standard tech tree equivalents already. I'm sure you could find another Project 122 or something similar to it, which is very close to it. Then, on top of that, the meta idea. Now, it could be meta. You know, the 45mm that you see on the back of, 37mm that you see on the back of this thing are incredibly good in naval. The issue is they have diminishing returns, so they're really good against small boats and general battle boats, not so good against destroyers. So if this thing goes primarily up against destroyers, those 37s aren't going to be very good, and the 85 is not going to be able to put enough firepower out to, you know, deal with a destroyer. So depending on its BR, this thing could either be very good or absolutely useless. And I know that sounds really weird, because you could say that about any vehicle, but the fact that there is such a discrepancy between battle boats and destroyers in this game, it pretty much means that a vehicle like this, if it gets matched up more with boats and smaller stuff, it's going to have a great time. But if it doesn't, and it gets into that little area, because there are some machines which do fall into that little area, you know, the 4 O's that we have, such as this machine here, the Shershon, or if we look at Britain, the Fairmiles are a great example of this. So if you have played the SGB, or the Fairmile D, and you've unfortunately got yourself into a destroyer match, well, you're just dead. There's not really a lot you can do with this thing. And I feel the same way for this vehicle. So, you know, that really matters. When it comes to its rank, well, it's only going to be either rank 2 or 3, so that isn't top tier. So in effect, that's good. You know, that's fine when it comes to the naval idea. I think rank 1 to 3 when it comes to general ships is fine to do premiums for. So yeah, that's, you know, that's all right. So it's got the 3 factors. Therefore, in my opinion, it's a pretty good event vehicle. The next one is, of course, the Junkers Ju-388J. Now, we've talked about this in the past quite a lot. I've done a historical video on it. This is the night fighter slash bad weather fighter version of the Ju-388. And when we look at its factors, the first one is I don't think this thing is going to be meta, just because we already have the HE-219, the ME-410 B6R3, you know, you've even got the Ju-88C6, I believe it is, at lower tiers if you want to take a vehicle like that. If it gets an S-spawn, then the ideas change. But there are a lot of vehicles in the German tree, such as the Do 335, which I would personally want to take over this thing just because of the maneuverability angle and its usefulness in speed. The Ju-288C is a really good aircraft, and the Ju-388 I'm sure will also be a very good aircraft, but is it meta-defining? Because if it's rank 4, which it's purported to be, you have a bunch of German fighters, which you would rather use instead of it, and even the night fighters and attackers, such as the 410B6R3 and the Do 335s, I think will outperform it. So because of that, I don't think it's going to be meta-defining. It's going to be a nice addition, but it won't, do anything crazy in that regard. On top of this, when we talk about standard texture equivalents, well, we've got, first of all, the B6R3 there. So I would see that as a standard texture equivalent, but if you weren't happy with that, there's this wonderful site, actually, it's called the ju388.de, and it pretty much just has a bunch of really cool pictures, goes through the history of the Ju-388 really well, and I just thought, I thought I'd give it a shout out here, just so you can have a look. But if you really wanted to get really obvious with it, you could just add into the standard tech tree the Ju-388 V2, which is just the prototype version of the J. This is the one that actually flew, where the J, it was the production version, which, is... sorry, I believe there was a few J's that flew, but the V2 was the prototype, so we know for a fact that that flew. You could just put this in the tree, it would be exactly the same, maybe slight differences. If you wanted to put the one with the pyramid cone in, or the nose cone I should say, the long nose cone, you could do that too. So yeah, there are definitely standard texture equivalents for it. On top of this as well, here's a picture of the V2 or the J, just stick it in the tree. So the factors that we talked about, it's not too high, rank 4 is a good place to have a premium, it's not going to take over the meta, and also it does have standard texture equivalents that you could play or put into the game, so that's a good one. The last one is of course this. Now the I-180S is an interesting one because we've had many situations in the past in War Thunder where we've had vehicles which for the Soviets which have taken over the meta. As I said before, the I-301 is a great example of this. The other one is the I-29. I refuse to fly this thing. I flew it a few times and I was like, yep, nope, not ever touching this again, because I just knew it could take over games. The Tandem Mai can't really take over games. Like 334 definitely can. Pekrishkin's is insanely good at 3.0. There's a lot of gift vehicles that the Soviets have which are incredibly good. So when I see something like an I-180S, I am hesitant to say that it won't be meta, because all those other vehicles I listed you can make work really well inside the current meta that we have in War Thunder. And I feel like the I-180S is going to be the same. Even though it's not a high altitude fighter, it'll be a medium to low altitude one. It'll have good maneuverability. The issue it will have is, will it be able to maintain its speed in a straight line compared to some of the other machines that we have. So saying that it is meta, I am undecided right now if I would say that this is going to, be really good or be average. But the majority of the Soviet fighters around that rank 1, lower rank 2 area are really good anyway. So the question is, compared to them, is it amazing? And I think it will be average compared to a lot of the other ones, but I do think it will be sat on that meta line. The other one is the fact that it's rank, so it's a low tier, so that's fine. It's not a terribly high tier vehicle, therefore it's good. And the last one is, does it have standard texture equivalents? Well, we have the I-185s, which are its son, I suppose, the way you'd see it. We also have I-16s, which is what this is supposed to be bred out of, and also we have a bunch of standard texture vehicles, such as the Yaks, the Lags, the Levechkins, which all will play a similar role, even the MiGs. But if you wanted to go further, you know, we have the I-180s, the 1, 2, and 3, the prototypes. Remember, the I-180S is the production version, so they might have slightly different engines, but they would have the same guns, they would have the same, well, just maybe a little bit less power, maybe a little bit more power, but the main thing is you could definitely have a standard tech tree I-180 if you wanted to. So overall, for me, it is a good event vehicle to have. Because of these factors. So, as you can see, there is a little bit of a mixed bag here. My main issue is with the higher tier ones, you know, the Merkava and the Tiger. But for the Tiger, I'm a little bit undecided on. Because the meta aspect is so hard to work out when it comes to light cruisers. And but the other ones, you know, the Merkava. Yeah, I generally think it's a bad idea, but everything else I can definitely make arguments for. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you next time. I'd like to thank B. Young, Blackie, Dyslexic Child, Martinez, Moxie, Nito, Nick Graham, Alobralo, and Super Cacti for supporting me on Patreon.